backlash on a previous video I made regarding a fraud case in Minneapolis that had heavily to do with one specific minority group among others. So I want to address some things. If you are anti establishment and you're against political corruption, then this channel is for you. If you don't care about political identity and you don't care about the left or the right and you're willing to criticize both, then this channel is for you. If you're sick of political correctness and you're scared and worried about trying to talk about specific minority groups without sounding offensive, then this channel is for you. If you're looking for a channel that's going to continuously bash conservatives and bash liberals, then this channel is not for you. If you think I'm going to pick one side as fully conservative or fully liberal, this channel is not for you. If you're looking to hate on a specific community group, this channel is not for you. If you're willing to talk about corruption in any group, then this channel is absolutely for you. I'm Palestinian. I've talked about that very openly. I've made tons of videos on that. Clearly, I have a stance on Israel. If there was an issue within my community, which there has previously been, and I'm addressed, I have no problem addressing issues in every community. I've received hate since I've started my channel, basically from as many minority groups as you can think of. I'll give you an example. About a year ago, when Assad's regime fell in Syria, I stated what caused the regime fall in Syria was the Mossad, because they funded the opposition along with the CIA in order to start the overthrow of Bashar al-Assad. At the time, I lost hundreds, I mean genuinely hundreds, of Syrian followers because apparently I support now the dictator Assad. People called me bigoted and hateful. They stated that I didn't support Syrians' freedoms, that I only support the freedom of Palestinians, and on and on and on and on and on. Regardless of how much evidence showed that the opposition was funded and backed by the Mossad and CIA, I was still considered a bigoted person for stating that the overthrow was caused and funded by those two organizations. Regardless, I stuck to my guts and I remain strong in that. Another example, last year as well, I spoke about how Saudi Arabia seems like a Zionist puppet state. I stated that MBS is in cahoots with Jared Kushner. Genuinely, I feel like they're in some sort of weird relationship at this point. And I've never seen anything like it. If you want to meet a group of people that truly love their government and view themselves and their government as one and the same, Saudi Arabians, perfect example. Immediately, just a flood of comments when I spoke about Mohammed bin Salman. And immediately people were like, we are all MBS. We're all the government. When you criticize the government, you criticize us. What the hell? So, of course, I left the video up. I'm going to criticize whoever I want to criticize. But then I was apparently bigoted and anti-Saudi Arabian, even though I'm Palestinian and I view everybody as an equal Arab. So apparently that was bigoted. I've talked about crime rates among specific minorities. I was hateful. That's considered racist. It doesn't matter what the topic is. If it has to do with any specific minority group, you're going to get hate. I'll give you another example that has to do with Palestinians. During Biden's administration, he passed a law that would sanction settlers in the West Bank if they committed violence or displaced Palestinians. It was probably the only law that Palestinians had at their disposal to stop terrorism in the West Bank caused by settlers. So I started drafting. Drafting proposals for which settlers to sanction, especially settlers around my family's village. And the State Department at the time actually did sanction the settlers from the proposal that I sent with Dawn. It was a group that I was working with to submit proposals for sanctions against settlers. During the presidential election, all I simply stated was, with a Democratic presidency, it's going to be easier to push these sanctions, while at the same time, and I stated several times, I do want to prioritize American interests over everything. And that was just a statement. Immediately, a flood of Palestinians just calling me a traitor, a hater, because apparently I didn't advocate for Jill Stein during the presidential election. A third-party candidate, by the way. So there was no chance of her winning whatsoever, but people were like, how can you speak about AIPAC so much and not advocate for a third-party candidate? Well, guess what? Newsflash, I actually did end up voting third party regardless, because I can make statements online without people thinking that I side with one specific side. I think people start to forget that. I make a video criticizing the left, and immediately I receive just support and courage and applause from the right. I make a video criticizing the right, and I receive support and encouragement and applause from the left. I promise you, if you're following my channel, I'm going to hate on both very equally. I am going to be an independent thinker. I've always been. I truly try to look at the facts as much as possible. And as much as I talk about how there is anti-Semitism is being used as a weapon against honest criticism of Israel, there have also been times other phrases and other words have also been used as a weapon to shut down criticism of a lot of different conversations. A lot of different conversations. I think that certain words have begun to lose their meaning because of the fact that we can't criticize specific groups, or we just can't have an open conversation is the better word. We can't have an open conversation about the facts. With that being said, is it important when I report on videos or report on stories and articles that I really do look at all the facts on the ground and I don't just exclusively hone in on one group while not considering everything else that took part of that? Absolutely not. I should definitely take the time to make sure I'm looking at a full assessment of the data. And I'm one person, and sometimes I'm going to trip up. And when I do, I expect my awesome audience to just call me out in the comments and be like, "Hey, you should also mention X, Y, and Z." At the same time, I view those who watch my videos as family. I enjoy the collaborative back and forth with people who subscribe to my channel. I like knowing that people are giving me their thoughts, and I think just like friends, you're not always going to agree with people, and I enjoy that. I think it's very weird if I had a follower that agreed with every single take I give. I think that would be weird. We're all independent people. You're going to probably like a lot of things I say, and you're probably going to hate a lot of things I say. I promise you, I do not hate any specific individual because of their ethnicity. Absolutely not. Or because of a specific group that they identify. Maybe if you're a Zionist, that's a little bit different, but I'm not going to hate people for just something they're naturally born with. That's not how I operate. Now, if I come off and I say something without really considering a broader perspective, then call me out. But don't think now I'm just specifically hating on your group. I think that if anybody calls out hate against Arabs or hate against any minorities, I think I do a pretty good job at that. I mean, look at the upcoming videos I have for today and look at the previous videos I've made. I've made videos on Venezuela as well. Surprisingly, I got hate from Venezuelans. Why? Well, because when I talked about how the CIA is trying to overthrow Maduro, it made it seem like now I support the dictator. And all of a sudden, floods of comments like I've never seen before. How can you support a dictator? I'm Venezuelan. You know nothing about this. Clearly, like, you should just get out of our politics, but also support us that we want America to overthrow the government, even though you live in America. Like, the most ridiculous things. And, this is also something I've noticed when anybody speaks on dictators, when any political commentator speaks on dictators. If I say I don't think the CIA should be involved in regime change operations overseas, apparently for some people that means I think that they think I love dictators. It's like telling people you don't like pancakes, so they say, "Well, why do you love waffles?" You know what I mean? It's two completely different things. It makes no sense whatsoever. I don't support regime change operations by the CIA in any country. I also don't really like dictators. Never really liked Bashar al-Assad. Don't really like Maduro. I think that those citizens in those countries should go ahead and overthrow the regime as they wish. If there's a civil conflict and they want to dispute it and they want the best for their country, as they wish. But what we've noticed time and time again in America is that whenever we conduct foreign operations overseas covertly, by we I especially specifically mean the CIA, somehow it backfires. It always backfires on America. I'll give you one example. During Trump's first term, Trump's been set on overthrowing Maduro from the very beginning of his presidency back in 2018. The CIA has been wanting Maduro overthrown. Back then, the United States tried less intensive efforts. Donald Trump thought by sanctioning Venezuela we could cause economic collapse. And within that economic collapse, what's going to arise is civil unrest, and the people themselves would be able to overthrow Maduro. That was the thought. So what did Donald Trump do? Well, he sanctioned Venezuela, and immediately Maduro, there was an economic collapse. And what did it do? It led to a refugee crisis. 8 million Venezuelans left Venezuela because of the economic crisis and the poverty that it caused because of Donald Trump's sanctions. Many of those refugees fled to nearby South American countries. During Donald Trump's administration, the borders were very secure, so Venezuelans weren't really able to enter during his term. However, that doesn't mean the refugee crisis wasn't going on. And what ended up happening during Biden's administration, when he relaxed the borders, tons of Venezuelans came in and they ended up heavily going to Denver, Colorado. So now we have people in Denver, Colorado that are heavily conservative, stating that they don't want the Venezuelan population here without recognizing that it was US foreign influence in Venezuela that caused that economic collapse because we were trying to do a regime change operation, a fiscal one, and it ended up backfiring, and it ended up causing a demographic crisis in the United States. Now, if you're upset with the fact that there's immigrants coming into the United States, that's your opinion. That's fine. What you can't ignore is the fact that our foreign operations is what caused that. There's a cause and effect, and people tend to focus too much on the effect and not the cause. That's the issue here. And I'm going to try to do as good as I can, as best as I can, to call out both things. So now, when it comes to what's happening in Venezuela, I'm totally against any sort of CIA involvement. I'm totally against any sort of US involvement, war involvement, whatever. Why? Because we want to stick in a Western puppet, Maria Corina Machado, hoping that when she's stuck in, everything's going to go smoothly and the Venezuelans are going to be happy and there's going to be no catastrophe. However, when we look back in history at the CIA's operations, that rarely ever happen, and there's always unintended consequences. So again, I have no problem calling that out. And like I said, Venezuelans got really mad at me because now apparently I support Maduro and I'm a communist. What I'm trying to say is this. If you watch my channel, I'm going to be calling out any specific group that I think needs to be called out because I just plainly and simply want to expose fraud and political corruption. Now, I don't intend to have hateful rhetoric directed at any group. And if I say things and they're bigoted, then please do call me out. However, with that being said, let's remember whose side I'm on and let's relax this obsessiveness with uh, political correctness, because the last thing I'm going to do is feel like I'm walking on eggshells in every video I make because I have to make sure I say the new politically correct term. It's not going to fly with me. If you are really worried about that, this is not the safe space. I don't have a safe space sign on the back of my wall over here, and I'm never going to put one up. Okay. So I think that it's 2025. We can have a natural conversation and we don't need to feel like I'm walking on eggshells. And this is specifically now towards minority groups. I think that they'll all agree with this. If you are a minority, what you've noticed, at least I'll talk about Arabs, is that Arabs have a very, very family oriented bond, and the relationship between their parents is very straight up. There's no fluff. There's no such thing as political correctness in the Arabic language. They're going to say things exactly how they are. I kind of want to have that same exact conversation with you guys when I speak. I don't want to try to have to worry about sounding politically correct when you know my intentions and you know where my heart is. So anyways, that's really the point of this video. Hope you guys found it interesting. I just really wanted to say what's on my mind here. Otherwise, I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care. Bye.